In this lesson, we'll learn about the various areas inside the Photoshop user interface. Alright, great. So this is the file we left off with in the previous lesson, but really what we're going to be doing in this lesson is kind of taking a tour around the interface. So we learned a little bit in the last lesson about selecting options in the menus up here. So we'll call that the menu bar here at the very top of the Photoshop interface. Now, what you should know about Photoshop, in fact, many of the Adobe applications are like this, is that everything is referred to as a panel. So over here, right below the menu bar, we've got our control panel. Now the control panel basically shows different controls or settings for tools you have currently selected. So right now I have the Move tool selected. You can see things that are related to the Move tool. Now if you want to just come through here and click on some of these different tools, you'll notice that the settings in the control panel change based on the tool that I have selected. So we'll just go back to our Move tool. Now just below that here, again, you've got your document tab up here. You've got the document window below that, which consists of your canvas. You can see here the big white square on our screen is our canvas, and then the scratch area outside of the canvas. So that's the document window. Now to the right and to the left, we have more panels. So over here on the left, we have our tool panel, and the tool panel is currently arranged in sort of this single column view, but we can expand a panel anytime we see one of these little double white arrows. So if I were to click on that, you'll see here that my tool panel expands to 2 columns. And we now have kind of a lot of space down here that's not being maximized. So I typically use my tool panel in a single column view. Now, over here on the right, we have sort of a lot going on. We have a lot of different panels we're looking at here. So you can see there are panels kind of in 2 different column arrangements. We have a column here where we have kind of clusters of tabs. So anytime you have 2 panels together like this, so in the case of color and swatches, this is called a panel group. So the panel group can be minimized simply by double-clicking on one of the tabs, or we can actually click on one of these tabs and we can drag the panel out of the group and do what's known as floating the panel. So you can see that panel has been floated. If we wanted to drag that back over, you'll notice that when I get over there, there's sort of this blue outline that appears. And you may notice that in several other places depending on where you kind of mouse over with the panel. That is your drop zone. So if I wanted to drop that right back where we got it, we'll highlight the swatches panel just like so, and just drop in the color panel. So you can see they're not exactly in the same order, so we can, just like with our document tabs, click on the tab and drag it to the left, and we can reorder the panels in that panel group. Now, we have multiple panel groups here. You can see here that we've got adjustments and styles. We've got layers, channels, and paths. And so basically everything you see here is known as a panel dock. Anytime you have multiple panel groups arranged in a vertical format, it's going to be referred to as a panel dock. So we have a couple of other panels right over here as well. Now these are in separate groups. You can see if I click on them and they expand out, there is one group that has the properties panel in it, and there's another group that has the history panel in it. Now, this particular configuration of panels is also known as a workspace. Up here inside our control panel, over on the very far right-hand side, you'll see this little drop-down that says Essentials. So this is what's known as the Essentials workspace. And the Essentials workspace has all of these panels and panel arrangements saved inside of it. Now, if we say did some changes here, we came over and maybe dragged some of our panels out, sort of like that. Maybe we even closed one of them out. Maybe we close out our layers panel just by clicking on that little X. And maybe we'll just collapse that one too. So we've made some changes to kind of the configuration of the Essentials workspace. Now we could actually come over here inside that drop down and we can reset the Essentials workspace. So if I do that, all those panels go right back where they started. Now you'll also notice inside the workspace switcher here, there are a number of different pre-configured workspaces. So we have our painting workspace, and it's got an arrangement of panels that are all related to painting. We have our 3D workspace, and again, 3D related panels. we have our motion workspace. And again, you see things like the timeline that opens up. So a lot of different types of workspaces. Now, you can actually even come in and create your own workspaces here if you so chose. But I'm just going to go ahead and switch back over to the Essentials workspace. All right, fantastic. With that, let's go ahead and dive into these panels a little bit deeper because there's a lot of customization that we can do with panels. So, for example, in the history panel here, again, you'll notice that there's that little double white arrow there indicating we can collapse that. We can actually come in here anytime we see a perforated corner down here at the right, and we can drag this and begin to expand that panel out. Now, let me go ahead and just collapse that again. We can actually kind of mouse over the side of this panel dock, and we can begin to drag this out. Maybe we're having problems remembering what panel's what, just based on the icon. And if we start to drag that out, you can see there are actual panel names that are hidden there. So again, a lot of customization that can happen here inside your various panels. Now, in terms of the color panel, let's just drag this guy out again, because there's a number of different sort of areas of the panels that you should be familiar with. We've already learned about the panel tab. You can click and you can drag on that. You can also double click it to minimize a panel. There's also sort of this title bar right here, and that's what's going to contain your close button as well as your collapse button. And then we have typically a panel menu out to the right below the X. So each panel is going to contain a different panel menu that has options that are very specific to that particular panel. So in this case, with the color panel, you can see there's things like grayscale sliders, HSB sliders, web color sliders, different ways that we can reconfigure what we're looking at here with the color panel. So let's go ahead and just drag this guy right back over. And now, as you begin working in Photoshop, I don't know exactly what type of jobs you're going to be doing, but typically the way I work inside of Photoshop is I find the panels that I'm going to use most frequently, and I usually only have those open. And I usually arrange them here inside the interface in such a way that basically my workspace is nice and clean and maximized. I don't like personally having a lot of different floating windows, kind of floating around sort of like this. This to me feels cluttered, and I don't like having a lot of clutter in my workspace. So now this may be fine for you. You may like having all these things open where you can work here in the middle and you can kind of bounce back and forth between the various panels. But again, that's totally up to you. So let me go ahead and come over here and just reset my Essentials workspace one more time. Now, when it comes to sort of cleaning up your work area here inside of Photoshop, there's one thing that I do quite a bit, and that's to hide my panels. There's a couple of ways we can do this. If we wanted to hide all of the panels, the panels over here in the panel dock, as well as the panels in the toolbar, or rather the toolbar itself, we can come over here and simply hit the Tab key on our keyboard. So you can see here not only are the panel docks hidden, as well as the tool panel and the control panel. So we've got a nice clean workspace here. We're unobstructed. We can focus just on the artwork that we're creating. Now I'm going to hit the Tab key on my keyboard again to bring those back, because another thing that I'll do quite a bit is I'll hit the Shift key on my keyboard and then hit the Tab key. And what that's going to do is it's going to hide all of the panel dock and panels that are not the control panel or the tool panel here. So we still have all of the access to these settings up here for these tools that we have selected. We also still have access to all the tools in the tool panel, but all of the rest of the UI is nice and clean. So again, I'll just hit the Tab key and we can bring those right back. Now, again, you probably noticed that there are more panels inside of Photoshop than just the panels we can see. You probably saw a few different panels once we started switching through the different workspaces. Well, we can actually still get to those. Let's come over here under the Window menu, and you can see here there are a number of different panels available to us. So maybe we want our character panel. We need to do some work with type. You can see here that opening that character panel in this case opens up both the character and paragraph panels because they're part of that panel group. So again, all of those additional panels can be found under your window drop-down menu here. So in this lesson, we've learned a little bit about the Photoshop interface, and we've kind of learned some terminology and some ways that we can customize this interface. Now, Now that we're familiar with this, we also need to know how we can begin to navigate around the documents we're working on. So we'll learn how to do that in the next lesson.